Hi everyone, and welcome to the Storybook Club. My name is Marissa, and today we're going to be reading a book together. And as we read it, what I want us to try to do is to imagine the story in a whole new way, like we've never imagined it before. A lot of these books have pictures in them, which can help us to know what the characters look like. But sometimes we'll be reading stories that don't have pictures, and that is a great way for us to use our imagination. So some of the things that we can look for during the story are kind of little clues, like colors or words that will describe different people, or if they're talking in this book in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, they talk a lot about food, and so we can imagine the different smells that we would be smelling. So that's my little intro for you guys. I am going to help us along the way, but this is something that I think is so neat about reading, is that you can really picture the story in your mind and it can come alive to you in a whole new way. So today I already said it, but we're going to be reading Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and it's written by Judy Barrett. Okay, here we go. We were all sitting around the kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat. We each could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed towards the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. So we're going to stop right there, and then we're going to go back, and we're going to just look for words that would be describing different things to us. So everyone is sitting around a big kitchen table, and it's Saturday morning. That makes me think that instead of maybe it being a school day, and with it being Saturday morning, maybe everyone's more relaxed and calm and joking around. And I can see in this picture that the two kids are actually playing. They're goofing around with their hands. And so, that's a right thing to think, is that, with it being Saturday morning, that they're all, having a great time together as a family. And with Grandpa working at the stove making the pancakes, maybe we can smell the pancakes in the air. Maybe we can smell the juices that the mom has been squeezing. Sounds like a nice time for a family. I wonder if we would have heard the pancake flying through the air. I definitely think we would have heard it land on Henry's head. It's too funny. I'm glad he still ate it. And everyone continued eating their breakfast, enjoying the time together. Okay, let's continue. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across the ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. Well, there's a lot already in that little part. Across an ocean and over lots of huge bumpy mountains and across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean. That is quite the journey. I know that would take a long time to get there. Cute. I can also imagine the grandpa sitting with his grandchildren. They're just cuddled up, ready to hear this story. In most ways, it was very much so that they're talking about the town Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. Sounds like a busy little town. But there was no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. I wonder if there's anything in there that would kind of hint to us more about the story. Well, it sounds like a very beautiful town with stores, gardens, a schoolhouse. There's probably a lot of hustle and bustle in the town when everyone's moving around. At the school, maybe you could hear the bell of the school. The houses with trees, that sounds really beautiful. Okay, let's continue. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. What? I wonder what that would smell like if it rained soup. I also wonder if it was hot or cold. Peas and mashed potatoes. That's so funny. Or the hamburgers. That's funny. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. Wow. I wonder how they would be able to predict the weather. Okay. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. I just keep thinking about what it would smell like with everything raining down. All these different foods. That's too cool. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast, butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk. Afterwards. Well, that's just too funny. Could you imagine having all your cups and catching everything? Or having your piece of toast and you're trying to catch the butter and jelly and even it out? For lunch one day, frankfurters already in their rolls. I think those are hot dogs. Frankfurters already in their rolls blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. I don't think there's any ceiling to the restaurant, so everything just comes flying in. Too funny. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful jello setting in the west. Periods of peas. I wonder how having all of your food come through the sky, like how it would make you feel. Like if you'd enjoy it, or if you'd want to choose what you were going to eat. Okay, I'll keep going. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the cats and dogs. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding ocean for the fish, turtles, and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. I mean, it's very cool that they are very resourceful with everything, making sure that all the animals get fed and that nothing goes to waste. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. Then this says, the Chew and Swallow Digest. Spaghetti ties up town. Uh-oh, traffic snarled on Lower Intestine Street. Oh no, the weather must be angry. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day. Oh, they all have little plugs on their nose. It must smell a little bit strong. The next day there was only broccoli and all overcooked. The next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. Oh, I don't think anyone's happy with any of these meal choices. Oh, and it's this little boy's birthday. I'm sure he's not happy with Brussels sprouts, peanut butter, and mayonnaise. I would imagine that everyone's getting a little bit upset. No one's really enjoying their meals anymore. Also, a fog would be pretty hard to eat. Have to like lick it with your mouth. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. Oh my. You'd think that would be good news, but it doesn't sound so great. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight. So they had to close the school. Oh no, things seem to be getting a lot worse. These pancakes are huge. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream, cheese, and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. Oh no. So some things that we can still be looking for are, what we would be seeing, which the pictures are definitely helping. What we'd be smelling, so you can imagine the cream cheese and the jelly and how that would smell. What you'd be hearing. I'm sure we'd be hearing a lot of people grumbling and complaining. Like, oh, I just miss those cheeseburgers. And then especially because everyone ended up with a stomach ache, I'm sure there's a few people groaning and saying, oh, I don't feel well. We can also be paying attention to how we feel. At first I was thinking that this was really fun and really exciting, but now it doesn't sound so great and I'm not very jealous. I'll keep reading. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. Oh no, I wish it was like maybe chocolate. Oh, a salt and pepper wind, that doesn't sound great. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. Oh no. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. Oh no. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. Oh no. Everyone's fleeing for their lives. The food has gotten too big. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter. They're making boats. Took the absolute necessities with them and set sail on their rafts for a new land. They're definitely very creative, making their boats out of the food. Maybe they're feeling pretty hopeful, maybe a little bit nervous. I mean, they've never left Chew and Swallow. They've never left their homes. But they're probably pretty tired of their situation, and so they're probably feeling pretty brave too. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. Oh, so sweet. The time that they got to spend with their grandpa, hearing about the story. I always loved being read to as a kid. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. That is the end. Wow. Well, it sure does make me thankful that I don't live in chew and swallow, because as fun and exciting as it started off, it definitely took a turn for the worse. It's a cute idea that it would rain food, but then, it's hard to, if you can't control the weather. And clearly the weather decided that it wanted to just give them not great food. So that was our story that we read today, and we're going to read another one next week, and we're going to keep trying to imagine the story, and hopefully next week you remember some of the things that we are talking about today, and that you can imagine for yourself what the story is saying and how it's making you feel and what you're smelling or hearing, and that these books can really come alive to us. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.